Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Delighted to welcome you to Furniture Makers Hall. I'm Hayden Davis, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm the master of the Furniture Makers Company for this year. 2 weeks more, and then I hand over to Deeds. Where's Deeds? Over there. Yeah, Deeds is the master-elect, so I will be stepping down shortly, but this is one of my last events of the year. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to Furniture Makers Hall and see so many faces here today. Smiling, happy, enthusiastic faces. I'm not going to keep you now. I'm going to hand over to the chairman of FIESTA, Gary Baker, and he will kick proceedings off for the day. So, great pleasure. Hand over to Gary.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for coming along and making the effort to be here today. You'll have fought the traffic or whatever it might be in London. I think we've got Berwick-on-Tweed is the furthest someone's come, unless you tell me otherwise. You've paid almost £14 for the privilege of being here today. That is purely for refreshments. We're not making a profit on that. But the very fact that you're here means that today we'll be preaching to the converted, because you've realised that there might be an issue that we might be able to help, hopefully, or you want to find out more. The real problem is all the people who aren't in the room. So, and the people that we've got to convince that there really is an issue here and how we're going to deal with it. But we'll come on to that more as we develop the day. So, who am I? Hayden said I'm the chairman of FIESTA, the Furniture and Interiors Education, Skills and Training Alliance, which is a group that was put together about 2 years ago to try and help and drive things forward in this area. We'll talk also more about what we've been doing in that area later. My day job is Managing Director of CD UK Limited. We're the distributor of Corian in the UK and Ireland. Today, my role as chairman is really to set the scene, to explain what's the point of today, and highlight some of the main issues, the burning platforms that we've got, and that are out there for all our businesses today. And this came about, well, and then you'll have noticed the 5 wise men sitting here, who are our panel for the first session. So we've got a panel after I've explained why we're here and what we're trying to do, to talk a bit more about why apprenticeships really do work for employers. You'll see we've got a very diverse set of people. We've got at least one person under 65, which is good. And then after that, we'll have a session from John Henry, who is heading up Skills Plus, which is the apprenticeship training agency that we've set up to help with this area, to help with the whole apprenticeship issue within the furniture and interiors industry. So John can explain a bit more about what we're doing, how that works. So this all started back in 2015 when, well, it started years and years ago, but the industry, the good and the great, the industry realised that there was a problem, and that this gap, this skills gap had developed, and what they did about that was that they asked FIRA, who is the Furniture Industry Research Association, to survey the industry, to find out what the industry thought, and then to do a report on it. And out of that report came the fact that skills and training are an ongoing and unresolved issue. Yeah, there was a gap. Now, a chap called Charles Vernon, who isn't here today, he was master of the furniture makers around this time and the education lead for the furniture makers. He's the reason why, certainly I'm here, why FIESTA started, because he really drove the need for us to get together as an industry and push things on. And he said skills is a really low priority for business within the furniture industry. He's absolutely right. You know, we're all focusing on our day jobs, trying to sell, trying to develop the business without actually looking at what was happening from the training and education point of view. Charles was also really big that most companies sit there and say, how do I pay for training? Who's going to give me money to train? And in Charles's head, and I agree with him, that's the wrong question. The real question is, why do I need to train staff? Or even what happens if I don't train my staff? Okay. And the survey asked business whether your business is attractive to young people. Half of businesses said no, and a quarter of businesses said, I don't know. So that's 75% of businesses who are not thinking about or are not making an effort to make themselves attractive to new talent. 75%. And if we do manage to get people into the industry, the same number, 3/4 of the training we provide isn't very good. Back in 2015. So that's a pretty bleak picture that was painted by this report back then. Do you know who said that? So if I grow my hair a bit floppier and I extend my tie and speak in an American accent, Trump. Yeah. So the reason why I'm quoting Trump is not because I'm a fan of his at all. It's because this is the type of thing Trump would call fake news. Yeah, he'd absolutely say there wasn't a problem. Let's crack on. This really is a problem. And back in 2015, this became really, really apparent. We've got to take this seriously. And so we started trying to do that in 2017 with the Bridging the Gap conference. So 2 years ago, just under 2 years, over 2 years, we were here and we were trying to find a solution to bridge that gap. And we told the room, and I've sat and watched the videos back, about the ageing workforce that we had. So over 50% of our industry back in 2015, because this is the report that it was talking about, was over 40 years old. And the report told us that in 5 years' time, which is only 3 years now, yeah, a quarter of the workforce will be over 50. The industry knew that we're not very attractive to new talent, and at the same time, we've got an ageing workforce. So that's a double whammy. We're not bringing people in, and we're getting older. And at the same time, whilst the wider industry might have recognised that we had an issue and we're trying to bridge this gap, 50% of the industry themselves were sticking their heads in the sand because they didn't need apprentices or they don't know where to find them. That, to me, is as big a problem as we've got because we haven't got appreciation of what the problem is. And I've painted a very dark story, but at the same time, let's not forget, we've got a really fantastic industry to shout a lot about. So these figures are from 2015, so they've grown since then. And yes, it's worth pointing out that we are fragmented, which is part of the issue we've got. And that's not necessarily a will issue, it's that we've got so many different types of constituent within this industry. People who do varied work that we've got to try and bring together under common themes. There's 6,000 businesses plus in manufacturing. Okay, so this is just the manufacturing element. If you put on retail, if you put in associated industry, suppliers like myself, it's a lot wider than that. And those businesses were employing 80,000 people back in 2015. It's 80,000 jobs that we're providing to this country. And the great news is that because it's harder to find people, we're paying people more to do the job. So actually, if you come into our industry, it is a well-paid industry compared to a lot of others. And that continues to rise, actually. Now, as employers, we might think that that's a bad thing. But let's use what we've got in terms of, if we're having to pay people, let's use that as a positive for bringing people in. So that back in 2017, the reason I was here was because Charles had twisted my arm to chair this forum and start the work of bringing the industry together in this area. We'd called it FISP at the time, the Skills Forum. Actually, I think that's all we talked about on the day, because by the end of the day we decided we were going to call it FIST. I don't know what the T was. I can't even remember, maybe team or something. But the point was we had a solution for starting to bridge that gap. And that was to pull industry together. The levy was just coming in. It was an opportunity to take advantage of that levy if you were a levy payer. And we wanted to get people who weren't part of the industry excited about what we had to offer. And a combined, concerted approach to education, skills and training. And the last quote is me, because I watched back what we had to say. And I said, at the end of the day, having listened to everything, if there's one thing we need, it's industry itself to come to the table. So the businesses within our industry to get off the backsides and come to the table. I'm going to repeat that through today, because whilst you're here, we've still got that issue here. We can't do what we need to do unless we, I guess, mobilise industry within the furniture and interiors industry. Which brings us on to today. We've found the gap, we've tried to do something about it, and today we want to show what we have done, how we've started to close that gap, and give you ideas and hopefully give you confidence that there are solutions out there. So welcome to FIESTA. FIST or FIST became FIESTA. We decided that was a better term and incorporated everything we wanted to do as FIESTA with education, skills and training. And we have a vision. Now that vision is really simple. It's get more people into the industry, and once they're in it, make sure that the right education, skills and training is in place. Okay? Get more people in, give them the training that they need. And we know how we're going to do that. We've got a mission, which is quite wordy, but essentially it says we want to be employer-led. So it's back to trying to get industry involved here. And we want to provide this forum that is everything to do with education, skills and training, and it's across all types of industry, so all levels, all ages. Apprenticeships are not for 17, 18-year-olds, they're for anyone of any age, if they want them, for all sizes of businesses. The majority of businesses within our sector are small and medium-sized enterprises with 1 to 9 people working for them. And they're the people who need most help. And we put together a plan for how to do that. So we've got a 3-year plan, and there are 3 strands to that plan. Firstly, drive the development of the education, skills and training. So put in place the right training for people. The second one is that employers bit. Inspire business to understand the need to educate, to skill up, to train their people, and to have the way of doing that. And the last one is get more people into the industry. We've got a great industry, we've got to tell people about it. We've got to inspire people to come into our industry. And once they're here, keep them. So what have we done so far? We've been going about 2 years, and within each strand I just want to share a few of the highlights of what we've done. So within the education piece, we've facilitated pathways for actual qualifications. So level 2 on the manufacturing and design pathway are in place. And level 3 is in progress. Okay, so there are actual relevant pathways for the industry there for people to train. And also we've established furniture and interior skills plus. And that in itself is a significant move forward, because we've got this centralised company, better word, that allows us to focus all our efforts in the right way. And that helps people recruit, that helps with levy management if you're of the right size, access to funds for small to medium-sized businesses who aren't levy payers, to help with the cost of training. And it has this apprenticeship training agency at the heart of everything it does. And we've started driving people to use Skills Plus already. So there are a number of companies who are already training people or have found people through the ATA as we speak. The next bit is about the employers themselves. So because Skills Plus is there, we've got this recruitment opportunity for businesses within our industry. And the Skills Plus vehicle is the means of signposting people to find those new employees. The furniture makers did a great bit of work establishing an HR toolkit as well for employers to help them through the minefield that is our employment legislation these days. That is now housed on FIESTAlearning.com, which is Fiesta's website. And we went to W18, which is the woodworking exhibition held at NEC every 2 years, and started the woohoo, we're here, guys, process to employers. Lastly, in terms of trying to encourage new talent into our industry, we've started participating in the Apprenticeship Awareness Week, which is a government-run programme with schools, and we've run some pilots in that area, and we'll continue to do that on an annual basis now going forwards. We've, through the website, now got several case studies where young people explain why the apprenticeship system works for them, why it's so good for them. And we'll hear more of that from the heart today. We're advertising, so where employers have got posts they need to fill, those adverts are there trying to recruit people. It's essentially a free recruitment service for us. And there's a video to inspire talent that we'll be pushing out there to spread the word as well.
I've always loved making things. It started when I was like 15, building furniture with my granddad.
In school I didn't even realise a job like this existed. I'd never considered the furnishing industry before. I wish I'd found it sooner.
It's so satisfying to see a product I put together literally take shape in front of me.
Some people are creative, others are technical, but I wanted to work in an industry that combined both.
Every day I'm creating something that will stand the test of time.
Being part of a growing industry.
Facing a different challenge every day.
Putting the theories I studied into practice.
Working with my hands.
Having a trade for life.
There are lots of reasons.
Lots of routes.
And lots of careers.
What will yours be? Craft your future at FIESTAlearning.com.
This is more important. So we have achieved a lot, and actually I'm really proud of how far we've come, and there's a massive amount of work from a lot of people around this room has gone into getting us to this stage. But we will waste it if we don't do more. So Project Fear, I guess I couldn't not refer to Brexit in some way or shape or form today. It's a bit like the Trump thing, you know, Project Fear, it's not really there, you don't have to worry about it, someone's going to shout about this issue and it's not really there. It so is for us, yeah? So we can go to the inconvenient truth and face it up and take our heads out of the sand, which is what we want business to do. It's easier, as we all know, human nature well, we'll believe what's easier. It'll all be all right in the end. I'm afraid I don't have the ability to stand here and tell you it will be all right in the end unless we do something about it. So the message to industry needs to be put out there. Can you afford not to train your staff? Especially if you've got in manufacturing, at least 15% of your costs, your overheads, are going to be in the people that you employ. A lot of people leave jobs, number one, because of their manager, but a major reason is because they don't get the training they need. Okay? How far is your business falling behind the guy up the road, the girl up the road, the business up the road who is training their employees? And it's madness not to do this, because if you are a good employer who invests in training, you earn more per employee and become significantly more profitable by doing so. So it is nonsense not to do it. It's absolutely evidence-based that successful companies are companies who train. And this is the message I want us all to keep in our minds, that if we as industry, in the furniture and interiors industry, do not use what we've got and keep it and work damn hard to keep it, we will lose it. Why? Because many reasons. Training provider. We can't train without training providers. Okay, so there are companies like Travis Perkins here who've got up and done it for themselves. But those small and medium-sized businesses need experts to help them train. And the funding from our government, who is not working in a circular, joined-up way, is being reduced and reduced. And unless we get people through the doors of those training providers, they won't earn enough money to keep going. And they'll shut the doors and we won't have anywhere to send our people, even if we do want to train them. I think Charles Vernon had, at this session 2 years ago, used the analogy of Wallace and Gromit. You know, when the dog's on the train and the train's going and he keeps putting down the track to keep going. That is government policy in this area. Yeah, they don't know where it's going, so we just have to do our own thing and make sure we get it right for ourselves. At a very basic level, the focus is on the STEM subjects. So mathematics, the core subjects that government has said, you as schools have got to put all your money into this. Well, they haven't said put your money, you've got to put your focus in. And the schools have taken that with limited budgets and said, well, I'm not going to keep the design and technology centre going. I'm not going to have an arts course because it costs money and I need it for my STEM subjects. So the reality is we've got a bunch of kids who are coming through school and not even getting their hands dirty in the way that they used to. They're not even working with their hands, and let alone understanding there's a whole industry out there for them afterwards. Last but not least, think about engineering. Think about Rolls-Royce and, I don't know, the car firms, Jaguar Land Rover, Toyota. Think about the armed forces. Think about the legal professions, the accountancy professions. They are all doing recruitment really well, massively well. They're pumping millions of pounds into this, and they are talking to the young people coming through and telling them that there is a solution for them. And unless we do the same, we're just going to lose out. Yeah, we're not providing a loud enough option for these kids coming through. So it all comes back to us. It's our choice. We either stick at the moment or we get up and do something. I'm going to hand on, thank me for this, to Alex Crofts with a panel about the positive side of why apprenticeships really do work.
Thanks, Gary. My name's Alex Crofts. I sit on the FIESTA committee and I'm also the chair of the education committee for the Furniture Makers Company. As a side job, I also run a business, Crofts and Ascender Limited. Purpose of today's discussion is to look at the key issues with regards to apprenticeships and actually look at some of the myths and some of the challenges that surround the apprentice scheme. We've had the introduction to the apprentice levy. We've heard some of the doom and gloom stories in the press. We've heard positives saying that the apprentice schemes are working fantastically. We've had other people say, well, there's been a large dropout of apprentices from the apprentice scheme since the levy's come into play. But a lot of these are sound bites from politicians, from news commentators. So really, what are the true facts? Well, we've got an exciting panel with us today to discuss some of these myths. And some of the myths, I'll give you a couple of examples that we've done some research on. A common myth I hear is that apprentices are time intensive to run and we haven't got the time to manage them or to put development into place for them. Other myths are apprentices are too expensive to run. If I recruit an apprentice, they'll just leave for more money once they're fully trained because another company will come in and headhunt them. A common myth I hear is the process of recruiting apprentices is too confusing, too uncertain, and even if I knew where to look, I don't know where to find that person. So these are some of the myths which we are hearing in industry, and today the purpose of the panel discussion is to put some of those myths to bed and to actually hear some real life examples from people involved right across the apprentice spectrum. So we have on our panel today, we have two people who are involved in recruiting apprentices. We have two people involved from the training providers, and we have an apprentice as well. So I'll make some introductions quickly. We have at the end of the table Chris Hyde, who is the Director of Curriculum at Activate Learning, Oxford College. Chris is a provider. We have James Herriot, who is the Managing Director of Callerton Kitchens and Interiors. James is an employer. I have Jordan Alsop, who has completed a level 3 and is in the process of completing his level 4 apprenticeship. And Jordan is from Urquhart Furniture. Jordan is an apprentice. He's going through the system. He's looked at it from the start right through to the end of this system. So we've got an invaluable knowledge here. I've got Barry Moss, and Barry, forgive me because it's quite a title. Barry Moss is the London and South East Regional Development Apprenticeship Manager for Travis Perkins. So Barry is an employer. And I have got one other person. I've got Martin James.
So that's about part of the morning.
So I'm just waiting for Martin to join us. So Martin is the Commercial Director of Didac. And Martin is a provider and has actually been very heavily involved in FIESTA and the furniture industry and development. So we've discussed some of the myths. We've introduced our panel. We've got a nice wide spectrum of people here. So the first question I have, and this really goes to James first, is James, how do you find a good quality candidate?
We actually find it very easy. We use a provider up in the northeast. I should explain, I suppose, a little bit. I'm a founding director of Callerton, where kitchen furniture manufacturers. We employ 50 people up in the northeast. Within the factory environment, we use a company called Access, and they've been brilliant. They actually find us the people. They come in every week and look after them, and it's been a major success for us. We set up, 7 years ago, we set out on a path of expansion, and one of the biggest problems that we have is finding skilled staff. And if you bring people in from outside, so often they come with a lot of baggage and problems and whatever. And we made the decision that actually training people was the best way to do it. Now, proof of that is 7 years on, we have 8 apprentices who are out of their time, running different parts of the company. We currently have 2 apprentices still going through things. We have lost some, but we have 8 fantastic young members of our company, and it's transformed our company. You know, we have employees who've been with us 25 years, 20 years. It pushes the older employees. It's transformed our company. So all I'm saying is I have an absolute belief in it, and if you're not using it, do.
And Barry, the same question to you. How do you go and find a good apprentice? What's the process Travis Perkins follow?
So within Travis Perkins, we have a number of groups, the larger group, and we have 26 businesses. So we have a very large recruitment team and HR team. So a lot of our recruitment goes on through there. Most of it, to be honest, is word of mouth. So we'll put a poster up in a branch or in one of our stores, and a customer who comes in will say, my son, daughter, nephew is interested in the position, and then we have chats with those. We do a huge amount of work within the National Apprenticeship Show, which you mentioned earlier on. National Apprenticeship Week, we do a lot of promotion around that as well. We do a lot of schools events, college events, university events. So there's many different ways to get people in and good quality people into the business.
In terms of the myth that said that apprentices don't really add value to the business, how have Travis Perkins valued from the apprentice schemes?
So part of the new standards, there was a huge focus on return on investment. I don't know whether anybody's seen some of that stuff. So we've been working on how to record the return on investment. And we give them a little formula at the end of their programme. Once they've finished, we give them a little formula to work out their wages over that period of time, their projects that they've done, some incentives they've done. And it's not just about selling more product or making more profit. It's about efficiencies, safety, and so on. Even just goodwill, we can put a cost value to. And on average, when you work it out, and we have had some interesting ones come in where one of our apprentices said their return on investment was 2.6 million, which was quite impressive. But when we checked his maths, it wasn't quite there. But on average, we work it out to £38,000 per apprentice is the return on investment.
Fantastic. And Martin, over to you. One of the questions I often hear from small and medium-sized businesses is, I'm desperate to get an apprentice, I don't know where to find one. So what advice would you give to those individuals?
Well, I think that in a sense that's what today's about, because with the Skills Plus we now have a strategy and an operational company in place to resolve that. In the past there are exemplary schemes that employers have managed to put in place, but it's almost always been predicated on them having a close working relationship with a training provider. But the issues a lot of companies have is they may have several branches across the country, training providers frequently work on a regional basis, and there are different formats of training. So in a sense, a lot of what we will come on to talk about today under Skills Plus will begin to answer that question more comprehensively.
That's great. And Chris, from Oxford College's perspective, how do you work with the local schools, colleges? How do you get people actively engaged with yourselves, saying this is a future career choice?
Yeah, well, I think what we're seeing more 16-year-olds wanting to get a bit of money while they learn. And there's some quite fascinating figures out there. And my favourite one at the moment is more people applied to Love Island than they did go to UK British universities, which kind of suggests that people aren't looking for the traditional route of what we know of the gold standard of A-level in universities. So I think then you've got apprenticeships kind of coming into their own and having a bit of a win. But we would work with the schools, we'd work with local sort of careers officers, and the teams in the sort of creative areas of the schools in order to sort of pull people through and along.
Oh, and how would you react when the teachers say, look, we're being pulled from pillar to post, we've got Ofsted breathing down our neck, we've got funding cuts? How do you say to the teachers, look, this is really important?
I think what we see is that a togetherness of community is key. And I think if you sit isolated, and this is why FIESTA came about, if you sit isolated, then actually you won't survive on your own. We're stronger together, and that's the way that we go in and talk to schools.
Thanks. And Jordan, finally, same question to you. As an apprentice, having been through the scheme, You're sitting at home going, right, I'm starting my career journey. What steps did you take to get engaged with the apprentice scheme? What was it that attracted you to the industry and the apprentice scheme?
So let's start from again. I was at school like everyone else, doing my A-levels. Big thing with schools, they try and push you to do university. You don't really hear about apprenticeships. So you have all you're drilled to do is do really well at schools. They just want you to do university. And I came to a point at school where I was doing my A-levels, and naturally I was a bit like, well, I don't want to go to university anymore. My friends didn't either, and that, if you want, wasn't the deciding factor, but it helped. So for me, it was kind of like, you hear all the stories, you get the debt. But the biggest one for me was you came out with a degree without a job. And for me, I then went to go, I want to do an apprenticeship, because I knew, one, I get a trade, and like you say earlier, I wanted to earn money but not have the debt, and I wanted the job at the end. So for me, it was going out there, just looking on my own, and I was quite lucky enough to find the one I'm on now at Urquhart Furniture, who are only just down the road from me and who have given me a great opportunity now. And you know, I would suggest to anyone thinking of doing it to do it. Just don't listen to, university isn't the only option. Apprenticeships are better, in my opinion anyway.
Brilliant, thanks Jordan. And Barry, kind of from a business perspective, what does a business need to consider in changing from not having an apprentice scheme or an apprentice programme to adopting an apprenticeship programme?
It was never really a huge concern. We've always done apprenticeships at Travis Perkins. Our current CEO started on a management trainee programme and worked his way through the business in the 70s, so it's always been a strong guide. When I joined the business 5 years ago, we were doing apprenticeships. They were all external, new people into the business, about 150 a year, but we didn't fund it. And we didn't fund it for some of those myths. It's hard to do. You've got to get Ofsted involved and the ESFA involved. So we didn't fund them. We funded the apprenticeships ourselves and still got the benefit from them and could see the benefit from them. Then we had the conversation, came around to the levy, and as a significant levy payer, our levy payments are a little bit higher than £3 million a year. So with that chunk of money, we had to kind of make that decision as to whether we wanted to write it off. We're in a very fortunate position to be able to afford to do that if we wanted to, or use that levy and increase the apprenticeship programme. So from 150 apprentices, we're aiming for 1,200. We've currently enrolled since October 17, 1,047. We've got 720 on board at the moment, and it's a quarterly intake. It's a continuous thing. We never thought at any point that doing the apprenticeships wouldn't work for us. We've always worried about the things that you talk about, as everybody does in business. But with the levy and the way that the standards changed, you have a lot more control as a business over what you do with that money and how you spend that money and how you train your own staff. So it was a no-brainer really. There was never a choice between not doing it and doing it. We were always going to do it. But moving into the new levy style has meant that we've gone from running, one level 2 and 1 level 3 apprenticeship to 6 level 2 apprenticeships, 6 level 3 apprenticeships, a level 5 apprenticeship, a level 6 degree. So if you want to go to university, why come out with 40 grand's worth of debt or whatever it is these days? You can come to us and we'll take you all the way through to degree level. And you know what? We've also got the masters as well if you fancy it. So.
And you mentioned the levy, and kind of one of the things some of the larger companies have said about the levy is they see it as a tax. Some companies are very successfully running apprentice schemes and are utilising their levy effectively. Others aren't. Some of the feedback again I've had is, on a large company, we see this as a tax. The administrative element of liaising with the appropriate bodies to do all the finances and make sure everything works is really just a pain in the backside. I could really do without it. How do you guys manage that process?
So we used to do it with a team of 5. So not last Christmas, Christmas before, our Christmas party picture was 5 people in hats, worse for wear. We have 32 people in our team now, across the country, because we are national, and we break even. So we're lucky that we can afford to do that. It costs us a chunk of money to do that with wages and everything else. We farm out some of it, we sub out some of it. So our degree level and masters is run by the Open University. For some of the specialist areas, we do use training providers as well. So we can utilise that money, and we can work with that money in any way we see fit. It's not that complicated, really.
So that is a real myth.
Yeah.
The complexity.
It's not that difficult. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a doddle to run your own provider, and the people who are running providers on here will back me up on it. It's not easy, and there are lots of hoops to jump through. As a business, we had the choice to not do it ourselves and go to a provider. And now that providers exist that do this stuff and understand the levy, sometimes maybe it's a lot easier to go to providers. It can be. When you're a large business like us, then we can do that ourselves and influence it in many different ways. But the key message is, with the new process with the levy, as an employer, you have control. It's your decision what happens to your employees and what training they do and how that works for your business. So that's the key message is it's your choice as an employer.
That's great. Thanks, Barry. And James, to you, kind of under the old system, there were a number of restrictions. Unless you tick these boxes, you wouldn't be eligible for funding. With the introduction of the new levy for smaller businesses, it makes the process to obtain funding for the apprenticeships a lot simpler. How have you found that at Callerton?
I think with regard to funding, the funding's irrelevant to us. You know, we're taking on an employee. That they're an apprentice doesn't matter at all. They're very much part of the team from the minute they arrive. It's our investment. It's actually getting, we're an SME, so we don't get the levy and the money and whatever, but it's absolutely irrelevant to us in that we need those employees. We need to develop those skills. And the youngsters that we get, you know, they're hungry to learn. They want to learn. And so funding isn't the important thing to us at all. Those youngsters, when they join us, they create wealth for the business. They're part of the whole team. Mm. So, you know, being an SME, the levy doesn't come into it. And if we can get some funding, obviously that would help. But that's not the important thing to us.
If you were to give some advice to a small or medium-sized business who, for them, funding is a concern, what advice would you give to them?
Another aspect to our business is we are kitchen furniture manufacturers. We have 40 independent dealerships throughout the UK. So I work with a lot of SMEs. You know, what's going on at the moment with regard to the design technician apprenticeship scheme is something, you know, I've been a supporter of for years, and hopefully it's about to come to fruition. Now, lots of our dealerships in the past will go, yes, it's going to cost me money. But in truth, we've been running design technicians ourselves for years. Again, they do a job that actually earns the company money. If you can get funding, it's got to help. But it's more about using that employee, even though they're an apprentice, but it is about them doing a job that needs to be done. And in the future, you develop them into, I've seen it Kitchens International in Scotland is the prime example. I've watched them take design technicians, and there hasn't been an apprenticeship scheme, but you know, I can think of 3 of their design technicians who are now branch managers. You know, it happens. It's not about, it shouldn't be about having to get money to do it. It's about that the person is doing a job that is needed to be done and is right for the company, and you can develop them the way you want. And honestly, it's for me, it's the right way for businesses to go about it.
Thanks, James.
It's a really important. Really important. Is this the fitted furniture design technician standard?
Yes.
So I think we were part of the initiation of that, and we've sat on that and worked on that as well through part of our kitchen business, or businesses. And that's a great example of the industry coming together, and it was one of the points you made earlier on about people coming together. That standard didn't exist, and we've been doing it too. We've been running CAD training, design training for a long time, and that standard never existed. We couldn't fund it through the apprenticeship levy. We couldn't fund it in any way, shape or form, but we're still paying that money into a pot. So we then stepped up and worked with a number of businesses to make that standard happen. And that's I think will be probably in your kind of area as well, where a lot of the standards will need to be created. So if it's the job, if it's a gap that you have, go and make the standard, create the standard, be the standard, go and make it happen, and providers and businesses will help you do that and support you to make that happen.
Yeah. And I think it's important. I mean, Gary mentioned STEM. That's a model the UK are following. A lot of the foreign models actually call it STEAM, because you have science, technology, engineering and maths, but the A stands for art and design, because actually that is a skill with CAD design. Engineers use CAD, but this is a skill which is kind of promoted at schools, colleges, but because art and design isn't being so well funded, and we've seen all of the surveys, we've seen all the feedback, that is causing problems, and that will cause our industry problems in 10, 15 years, because we'll have those individuals filtering through without the skills. So that's something we do need to look at as an industry, and I know it's something Gary and the FIESTA team are looking at. Martin, one of the questions I've got for you is, what's the feedback you've had from your clients with regards to the values of upskilling a business? So not just doing status quo, coming in, doing the job, going home, meeting customer demands, but in terms of upskilling that team so they're more productive, the skills are developed, they're up to date with modern technologies. What do you see in business with regards to how companies are upskilling?
Well, there are new upskilling opportunities now because of the new flexibilities under the new apprenticeships. So previously, a person could do an apprenticeship to a given level, and then you were basically out of the system, and you couldn't readily get access to another apprenticeship within the same arena. So now there are new flexibilities which enable employers and ex-apprentices to come back and do a different apprenticeship. So we purposefully set up our business model as a private commercial training provider, that 50% of our business was funded training and apprenticeships, but then we also had a short course commercial side, because we can then help employers dip into 2 or 3 days training on any given skill requirement, whether it be a big one for us is wood machining, refresher training wood machining. We train about 3,000 people a year in that. Many of those are perhaps cabinet makers who needed to be upskilled in wood machine training. So we blend the two, and the evidence base is really, I guess from our side, repeat business from those employers who they see the value of the upskill training. So our key indicator for our business is repeat business.
And Chris, again, that's the benefit, the upskilling a common thing I hear is that I can't afford to let somebody off a day a week for the training at college. What would your response be to that?
I think it's that classic story of being able to sharpen your axe, and if you try and chop a tree down constantly without stopping to sharpen your axe, then actually your productivity rate falls behind, and eventually everyone gets tired and leaves. So apprentices are good. They're good fun to have into the workshop. You know, they are for life. They will build culture. You know, they're not just for Christmas. But I think what's really important on the whole scheme of things, depending what age someone comes in at as an apprentice, as Martin said, you could have got a degree somewhere else, and then you could go back and do your apprenticeship. Is that what the main skills coming out for these sort of new 21st century skills is people in the industry who are problem solvers and creative thinkers. And that's going to be the key thing that we can solve through the new standards as well. In fact, we've got 3 along the front here, and myself who have just sort of submitted the level 3 ones, and just waiting for Institute for Apprenticeship to bring those back in.
Thanks. And Jordan, from your perspective, a common myth is the retention of apprentices. An apprentice will get trained, they're going to go and work elsewhere. Being an apprentice, what is it that you feel companies should do to ensure that apprentices stay in an organisation?
There's a few factors. I think the environment that the apprentice works in is vital. You've got to make it enjoyable, challenging. 9 times out of 10 you've got to remember these are naive sort of youngsters that are coming into work, they've never really done it, so you've got to make it enjoyable for them. But to retain them, I would say, again, like the myth is, some will leave. I have heard, unfortunately, stories where they do leave straight away after the apprenticeship finishes, but that's up to the company. That if they know out there that, all right, they could potentially go somewhere else, will then give them the opportunity to enhance their skills, give them the opportunity to do something else with their apprenticeship, not just the apprenticeship and then turn up to work every time. Let them progress. I would suggest, let them justify the reasons for, staying at work, keep them motivated, keep them challenging. The more qualification you give someone, yes, you'll have to pay them a little bit more, but it's only your benefit at the end of the day. To retain someone, I would say keep them motivated and make sure it's enjoyable for them throughout, really. So, yeah.
I just want to say thank you. Just listening to that from 5-6 people, it absolutely at the heart of this issue at all different levels of it. Thank you very much, guys, for giving of your time today to come along and help us with that. It was really, really interesting. So we could all say thank you very much.